I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, May the 23rd, brought to you in part by Safeguard. Safeguard is powered by fenbendazole. Safeguard is highly effective with all the formulations, as you know, you can worm your cattle in the pasture, in their feed, or in the chute with Safeguard. And all those formulations are proven to kill over 91% of worms that affect cattle. The first 50 people that text DOSER to 48109 get a free power doser from Safeguard. And for more information, go to safeguardworks.com. Also, Beaver County stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma had some rain up there last week. 2 to 3 inches of rain, pretty widespread around the Oklahoma panhandle there. Few spots a little bit more than that. On Monday evening it was storming up there again. Had some pretty good hail up there in a couple of spots too, but they are finally getting some moisture up there, so they're glad of that. Expecting about 2,000 head of cattle for their regular Tuesday cattle auction in Beaver, Oklahoma at the Beaver County stockyards. 400 to 500 calves. About 90% of those will be weaned and in fairly thin condition. 12 to 1,300 head of yearlings there. Will be 6 load lots of 9 weight steers that will sell. About 3 load lots of 7 to 8 weight heifers that will sell. And then a lot of smaller packages of 500 to 700 pound grazing yearlings. If you're interested in that sale, you can get on early and tell them you want to be approved on dvauction.com. View and bid the sale on DV Auction. That's Beaver County stockyards there in Beaver, Oklahoma. Fat's higher again, and you guys think I'm joking about that because we have seen kind of a dismal fed cattle trade here the last couple of weeks, but actually your 5 area weighted average last week was a little over $1 higher than the previous week. And the previous week was 20 cents higher than the week before that. And you might have lost that and everything that's been going on, but talking about the week before that, the last week it was down big was the last week that we had a significant movement in the southern plains. They've gone back to just kind of a moderate movement the last couple of weeks, and the northern plains has sold more cattle, so we've actually seen your 5 area weighted average higher. But my gosh, we're trading at about a $10 discount in the southern plains compared to the northern plains. They were getting $1.80 for cattle on Friday, which was the higher market there. It was up to two bucks higher in some spots there compared to the previous week because they were trading a lot of cattle at 178. But on Friday, you could get $1.80 starting out at really fancy cattle and then getting down to about anything that you'd be willing to sell them in the northern plains. And so, and they did quite a bit of that trade. Well, that pulled it up, but a $10 difference between the fat cattle in Kansas and Texas and the fat cattle in Iowa and Nebraska. My goodness, and we have really cleaned up the northern plains. They don't have many of those really high grading cattle left up there. But nonetheless, your fat cattle market has been higher for the week, both week before last and last week. So you can feel good about that, but we're not feeling very good about the direct trade in the southern plains. I mean, they're just they've basis jumped and basis jumped until they've only got about a $5 basis there, and they've lost all this market position. So how are you going to get that back? But I feel like maybe as we go forward here the next several weeks, I know they're saying we got more market ready cattle. We're not seeing it out there and not hearing the reports around the feedlot areas. People are not talking about there being more cattle showing up that are market ready. We've slowly started getting a little bit of leverage back, and the April slaughter was so light that these packers have really gotten desperate for cattle. Some of the majors are extremely desperate for cattle, buying cattle with time on them and then taking them the next day. Things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the market hold steady or maybe a buck or two higher this week as we go forward. But your high volume feeder cattle auctions on Monday were big. For one reason they were big is because they were wet last week, and so the weather kind of curbed receipts a little bit. And then also next week is going to be Memorial Day already, and so most of your big high volume sales, or pretty much all your Monday sales, will be closed for Memorial Day Monday. So they had pretty good runs here this Monday, but neither the atypical BSE case that was confirmed late last week or the cattle on feed report seemed to have much effect on your markets at all on Monday. Talk about your board. June live cattle futures were down 67 cents on Monday to end the day at 165.05. August was down 70 cents at 163.60. Your back months on live cattle were down 30 cents to up 12 cents. May feeder cattle were up 30 cents at 206.57. August, and it's just trying to get in line with your index levels. August was down 20 cents at 234.90. Your back months on feeder cattle were down a dime to up as much as 60 cents. Grains recovered big. Corn was down all week last week, and then on Monday, your December new crop corn was up as much as it was down combined last week, up 9 1/4 cents just on Monday at 5.09. Beans were up 21.5 cents at 11.97. Kansas City hard red winter wheat up just 1.5 cents a bushel at 8.25 3/4 cents. Your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade in your 5-area feeding region was rather light at 60,400 head compared to 68,000 the week before that and 77,900 the same week a year ago. But live sales of steers and heifers had a $15 spread within your 5-area feeding region on a significant number of sales. 167 to 182. Now that was $2 lower on the bottom end to $4 higher on the top end. Your weighted average on live steers in the 5-area feeding region was 175.15, helped by heavier trade in the northern plains. Like I said, that was $1.02 higher than the previous week. Your southern plains sold pretty much everything at 170. Like I said, $10 back are your big price in the northern plains. There was a few stick out deals on some really top cattle in northern Kansas that went up to a northern slaughterhouse, but it just wasn't enough to really affect your weighted average or much trade in the southern plains. It was pretty much all at 170. Dress trade last week in the 5-area was 275 to 282. That was up 7 on the bottom end and up $1.50 on the top. So we saw your weighted average on dressed steers at 280.84. That was actually $1.36 better than the previous week. So higher fats than the northern plains, and these packers are getting very, very desperate for cattle. Nationwide, we sold 75,000 negotiated last week. 24% of those only were 15 to 30 day delivery. Negotiated grid was 41,100. Forward contract was 27,000. That's significantly more than the last several weeks. Formula sales, 256,600 head. By the end of the trade on your 4 areas that we actually get to see information on, Iowa sold 22,100 last week. Nebraska sold 19,200. Kansas sold only 8,800. And Texas just 10,300. That's why we saw a higher weighted average, because the trade was so much more brisk in the northern plains. Box beef cutout values, wasn't able to give it to you on our last visit, but the weighted average on all of last week's sales on choice cuts were down 683 compared to the weighted average for the previous week's sales. But all of last week's sales had a weighted average of 299.80 on choice cuts. Select cuts, 283.90 was your weighted average for all of last week, down 86 cents. And on that weighted average for last week, your spread between choice select was just less than $16, and there was 522 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. On Monday, your choice cuts were up big, $2.80 at $303.90, and selects were actually down 51 cents at $283.43. Pretty good slaughter on Monday, 125,000, which is pretty brisk. Talk about what else is going on. Night Latch Group, Western Oklahoma, wants you to hang on to your investments with gross margin policies. Hedge your corn and your cattle at the same time with one policy and not worry about margin calls. For more information, go to nightlatch.net. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction ended the day on Monday at 206.69. That was $1.89 higher than where it ended last week. So significant gains on your Monday sales. They were all higher. So don't worry about, like I said, that atypical case of BSE or any kind of negativity that we could have seen on cattle on feed, which it was absolutely neutral. So didn't see that. But your big high volume sales on Monday, Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City had 9,800 head. Feeder steers are $4 to $8 higher. Spots $10 higher than a light test last week. Feeder heifers were $8 to $10 higher. These are significant gains on these trends, guys. Calves steady to $4 higher. Joplin had another huge sale, 10,700 head, $2 to $5 higher than last week's very active market that was sharply higher. So that is very significant. Had a stick-out sale in Joplin, 224 head of steers in one swath, weighed 734 and bring 223.50. Joplin Regional Stockyards broadcast on DV Auction. Your National Beef Wire stick-out sale of the day was Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota, also broadcast on DV Auction. 2,800 head there. Feeders were called $7 to $11 higher, and instances sharply higher. But look at this automated marker report. You see 284 head of 7-weight steers, average 764 with a weighted average price of $229.52. Not on your screen here, not on this report, but they had 157 head of 1,000 to 1,100 pound steers, averaging 1079 with a weighted average price of $187.55. But look at your heifers. 243 head of 6-weight heifers, average 641, weighted average price $225.97. 258 head of 7-weight heifers, average 735, averaging $210.32, and 480 head of 8-weight heifers in Worthing, South Dakota, averaged $832, weighted average price $190.40. Individual quotes. How about Russell Livestock Market in Russell, Iowa? They sell 55 steers, weigh 891 at $212.25. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Monday, your Macrison No BS top quote for the day, come out of Tama, Iowa, at the Tama Livestock Auction. It was 126 steers, weighed 837 at $221.50. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.